What is going on, investors? Back again. Nighttime action here. We're going to take a look at Take-Two Interactive Software tonight. Ticker symbol TTWO, the very, very popular game maker of games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, NBA 2K, and more. Now, you see this stock in the earlier session, in the regular session of trading, went up about 2%, and then boom, after hours it reported earnings and it's up close to 5.5%. We'll jump into the earnings. We'll take a look. What the heck happened? Why is this stock performing as well as it is, not only in the regular session but in the after hour session? I mean, this is a 7% move on a $19 billion company, on a company with a 47 price to earnings ratio. It's probably a little higher than that now. We'll take a look at the stock chart as well, see if we can jump in here and buy shares. Now, before we get into it, people ask me all the time, how do you find good stocks? Where do I do research to find good stocks? I always tell people, forget trying to look for stocks. Go look for leadership. And this guy, Strauss Zelnick, is the epitome of strong leadership. The reason why Take-Two Interactive is successful is because of this man right here. Now, you see he has the pedigree from Harvard Business School, Harvard Law School. This guy has been an absolute baller for this company. If you listen, I've listened to him on podcast, on TV, on radio, all on YouTube. This guy knows what he's doing, and that is why this company has been extraordinarily successful during his tenure, which has actually been a long time. Let's jump right into the numbers. Why in the heck is this stock trading up 5.5% in the after hours? Well, guys, this was an absolute blowout winner of a quarter. We got Take-Two Interactive quarter. We got the 3-month ended here, 2020, 2019. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, but, that stuff leads you to sitting at home playing video games, apparently, because take a look at this. In the previous period, this time last year, when the economy was great, you could do whatever the heck you want. They were making $540 million in revenue in a quarter, and take a look where it went to, all the way up to $831 million in one quarter. And I can't say that I don't follow video games as much as I used to. I'm a little bit older now. I got 2 young kids, so I'm not playing a lot of video games, but I want to say they probably didn't have a big release during this quarter. So this is an absolutely stellar quarter for the company. Now, what I wanted to do also really quickly is just broadly, let's see where Take-Two has been here. So we made 1.8 in 2018. This is net revenue here. I'm pulling up an annual report here. And so their fiscal year ends in March 31st. So this 2020 number actually ended just a few months ago. So we've got 1.8 billion in 2018, really nice tick up. That's almost $1 billion tick up into 2019, and not quite as didn't accelerate quite as much into 20, but still a really strong year where you crossed 3 billion in revenue. So I want you to take a look at this. This is an $830 million quarter. And that is about half of what they did all in 2018. And if you want to annualize this number out, it obviously gets them not way up above 2020 numbers, but I'm going to assume 2020 was a stellar year for Take-Two. Also, you're coming up into what we refer to as the fourth quarter here in the United States. There's a lot of video games being released. I don't think any of their mega hit titles are being released, but it's possible that Take-Two Interactive gets a little bit better as we move into the winter quarters. I'm sure they have a basketball game coming out and a few other games that are coming out, although I know for a fact Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption are not on the current cycle. So I would expect a 2021 number that is similar to this, a little bit higher. I don't think you're going to see the same jump that you see from 18 to 19 in terms of revenue growth, but this is an absolute stellar quarter when, again, just 2 years ago, they were doing 1.8 for the whole year, and they basically almost did half of that in one quarter. Not for half a year, for one quarter. Absolutely sensational. So total cost of goods sold. This is not like a super mega high margin business because you see they got these royalties, they got licenses, they got product costs, software development. I mean, this is not easy to make some of these games and the time pressure that these programmers are under. So you see it's not a super high margin business. We spent 477, call it, to make 831. That gives us 354 in terms of gross profit. But here's where leadership definitely plays a role, because if you're not in a, this is pretty high margin, but it's not like Microsoft margins or Adobe like margins. So you've got to control costs down here in G&A, selling and marketing, research and development, depreciation, business reorg. They control it very well. We see here we've got 272. Notice how much these ticked up here. Okay, this ticked up so big, but notice that this cost down here, just the general running of the business. Obviously, when you have a great quarter, you're going to have to pay royalty. You're going to have to develop software. You're going to have product costs and licenses and stuff. So I understand that this is probably going to double when you almost double your top line. But the bottom line doesn't need to do that. And if you have good leadership, it doesn't. And that's what we saw here. It barely ticked up. I mean, that's less than $30 million when you grew the top line by a huge, huge margin. So that leaves lots of net income left. Down here, we went from 46 million up to 88 million. That's absolutely phenomenal. Went from 41 cents share to 78 cents per share. You see here, they're issuing some shares a little bit, but this is a mature company, and so that's nothing to be alerted about. Finally, on the asset side, let's take a look. How clean is this balance sheet? That's definitely going to play a role in if you're going to want to run out and buy shares of this at the elevated valuation and the elevated stock price that we're seeing here. So let's take a look here. We got 1.4 billion, call it, in cash in this is actually just 3 months ago. And then this quarter, look at that, ticked up actually kind of nice. We got short-term investments here. That's pretty much cash as well. That ticked up nicely. I don't see, man, not a lot in inventory. That's really good. Look at this. They're controlling that. They don't got a bunch of, NBA 2K14 sitting around, so they're doing pretty well there. Let's keep moving through this. I want to look at the liability side. Let's see what they got on the liability side. And my goodness, I was eating dinner the other day at a restaurant, which is kind of rare here in California. They had outside seating, and when people got up, they would come over and they would clean the chairs, and that's basically what I'm seeing here. This is as squeaky clean as a restaurant table right now here in California. I mean, they send over 3 or 4 employees to clean that thing after you get up. I see no real debt. I see nothing here. I see total liabilities at $2.718 billion, and this is a company with, we'll call that, over $2.2 billion in cash. Guys, this is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if I have enough superlatives to describe what I'm seeing here. We see cash flows went from 108 all the way up to $445 million. That is a 4-fold increase. Man, this is phenomenal. I mean, the only thing that would be better is if Natalie Portman came walking through the door to spend the night with me, but I doubt that's going to happen. So I'm going to take joy in reading through this financials. Let's jump over again. For a full year, man, they're doing $3 billion. Just a few years ago, they did 1.8. This is a company that's doing great. And their number one hit, Grand Theft Auto, has just been a hit year after year after year, and they really haven't released. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 6 hasn't come out, so it's just phenomenal. Let's jump over to the stock chart. Is there a spot where we can pick this share up? I mean, this stock has run. I tried to draw a trend line in here. It's not great. I wouldn't say this is kind of the elevator that we're going up here, but maybe a more professional technician could draw this a little bit better. We see the shares broke down here. I mean, you could draw it under here. What I'm trying to point out to you is if you draw a trend line on this stock has traded above it for a while. I mean, it traded above it here. It touched it here. It was touching it here. It was touching it here. But now, boom, we're way above it. Notice what happened when we were way above this trend line. It comes back. We're way above this trend line. It comes back a little bit. So that's the only thing I think you can hope for, because this stock, I'm sure at some point will release another Grand Theft Auto game. They'll probably come out with another hit. There's just a lot this game maker can do. The last thing I did want to show you actually is there was one last thing in here. So we've got United States here. We see what I really like is this is a really it's like 50-50 almost. International, I know it's 57-43, but that's pretty darn close. So if you think the United States is going to struggle or international is going to come back stronger than the United States, well, here you go. You got equal distribution between the two countries. or the two sides of the world, I guess is another way to say it. Now, here's what's even more phenomenal. Look at this digital online. 726 million of the revenue is 87% is digital. 92 by net bookings, 92% of it is digital online. They're selling very few physical discs. That's why they have such tight inventory controls. This company has made the perfect transition. I mean, just a couple years ago, you were only buying games on disc, and now everybody's buying them online, and that's exactly what this company's doing. It's phenomenal. This is just awesome. And then you see here console. Obviously we got the new Xbox and the PlayStation coming out here in the next, I guess the next couple months. Or maybe next year at some point. And then we've got PC. So it's obviously it's console heavy, but you've got some of this PC as well. So they've got a mix here. They're not totally reliant on the console, but considering we have new consoles coming out, I mean, this is just amazing. I love looking at companies like this because they're performing and executing almost flawlessly. But again, like I said on the stock chart, this stock has run away from the trend it was in. If you want to count this trend line, I mean, you could bump this trend line up here if you want. You could put it up here. I mean, there's really not a lot of good spots to... I mean, there really isn't a lot. Maybe this is a little bit better in here. But either way, anywhere you try to put this to come across these lows where it tests here, this stock is way above trend. And we see it was way above trend here. It came back. It was above trend here. It came back. So that's what I would do. I would put this on your watch list. Hope that, there's some macro stuff going on. Okay, after earnings, we're going to go through a little bit of August, September, and October where there's not going to be a lot of big earnings. And what people I think are going to focus on is the election, the unemployment, some of the GDP numbers. And so those I don't think are going to be very good. And so that's possible. That could possibly send stocks back down to earth a little bit. Okay. Obviously, it depends on what happens to Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, those types of stocks. Those stocks would have to come back to earth, and then certainly the rest of the market will follow them. So it's possible. I certainly would like to buy shares of this maybe back at these highs, 160. If you want to come in there, it'd be great if it came back here to 150. But the way this company is performing, I don't see it right now. Obviously, I think if you're going to want to jump in here on a pullback, you're going to have to, I think, pray for some kind of macro event to pull it back, or the general market to have to sell off for like a macro event, either like an election thing. I don't think the election is going to mess with the markets too much either way it goes, but unemployment, GDP, things like that could definitely affect the market a little bit more than probably the election will. And then maybe you can come back here and get this stock when it pulls back a little bit. That'd be my only advice here. I wish this stock was in my portfolio. I was talking to my dad before it hit this. He bought this stock at $12. Okay, so maybe I should have my dad on here giving recommendations on what. My dad doesn't play video games. Okay, so he bought this stock at $12. I think he's doing pretty well last time I checked. So hopefully I can follow in his footsteps and pick these winners. This is just an absolutely phenomenal company with absolutely phenomenal leadership. If you own this stock and if you own it for a long time, pat yourself on the back. But what I would do is ask yourself, why did you invest in this company? Why did you buy shares? What was your reasoning? See if you can walk through that again and see if you can't replicate that. That's what a great investor does, is they create systems like, what did they identify in this stock? Maybe all the way back here, or maybe all the way back in here when it was cheap. My dad, like I said, bought it at $12, probably somewhere back in 05, 06. I mean, he's had this thing for a long time. What was it about this stock that you bought this stock and held it for a period of time? Even if you bought it up here in the 50s and 60s, you've done incredibly well. So try to replicate that. And if you're like me and you're wishing you're holding this stock, just slap it on your watch list. We get a big macro pullback like we saw in March, and this stock has pulled back a couple different times over the years. I think that's your chance to jump in there and get it. As long as they have the Strauss Zelnick as their CEO, this stock is going to be an absolute 100% winner of a stock. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We'll be back tomorrow. I think I've got Nikola Motors on tap for tomorrow, among other stocks, I got Disney. I've got a list of stocks to go through. So keep those suggestions coming, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as I possibly can. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your investments.